What's up, guys? It's your boy once again, Joses. Guys, I've been missing you, man. Welcome back to the show where we talk, the developments that are taking place in the country and abroad. Guys, a lot has happened. A lot has happened during the course of the week. March and March, led by Umamu Sis Jacinta, at the forefront, Nabongizwe, featuring Nabongizwe and the Pagelum Tagati, going all the way from KZN to Eastern Cape, East London, to challenge the alleged coronation of Igbo king, from Nigeria. Guys, these guys were trending, man. The whole week, these guys have been trending. These guys of March and March, challenging this thing of coronation of a king from Nigeria in South Africa. Whether it was indeed a coronation or something else, we don't know, guys. But for now, we heard from the Nigerian authorities, the guys from the embassy, the representatives of Nigeria, I think they call it Commission of Nigeria. They've stated that this thing was not a coronation, guys. This practice was not to legally recognize that guy as a king. He stated that this thing was just a cultural practice. This is what they practice as the Nigerians, the Igbo tribes. He said it was not a coronation, but most people, especially South Africans, perceived it as a coronation. So guys, if this thing was indeed a coronation, I will start by stating that it was wrong. If it was indeed a coronation, it was wrong. It shouldn't have happened. Even a South African, I'm from KZN. I can't move from KZN to another province where there is a king that is already existing and get my friends to coronate me as a king. It is wrong. That is invasion. It shouldn't have happened. I condemn these guys from Nigeria who did this thing. If it was indeed a coronation, if this is not to say now they are trying to, to justify this thing that they did. They're trying to escape accountability after this outrage from the public. If it's true that it was a coronation, unless it was indeed not a coronation, it was just a cultural practice, then I understand. Regardless of your citizenship, wherever you are, you can practice your culture. It's not a problem. But if they are lying, it is wrong, man. I don't support that. So guys, these guys from March and March, going all the way from KZN to Eastern Cape in solidarity and support of comrades there in Eastern Cape and other members of March and March to march against this thing of coronation of a king. Do you think it was necessary, guys, for these guys to do it? I'm going to break it down for you guys, whether it was necessary or unnecessary. Firstly, guys, I want to share with some of you who don't know the history of this country. This country, guys, was got invaded in 1652, you know, when the Dutch East India Company, the guys from Dutch, arrived here in 1652, you know. So from 1652, this is when mostly blacks lost their land. They were relegated from good places to bad places and dispossessed of their land, you know, by the other race, the guys from Europe. This is just a brief history of this country, guys. I'm not preaching hatred or racism here. This is not a racial channel. I'm not playing a race card. I'm just giving you the true brief history of this country, you know. So blacks tried to fight, you know. There were those back and forth wars between the, you know, Europeans and some Africans or black people in this country, you know. But blacks were defeated because ultimately they were dispossessed of their land. That's how most blacks lost their land to Europeans, you know. Fast forward, they were denied to participate in both political and economic activities in this country. They were excluded completely, you know. They were treated as subhuman, you know. They were subjected to subhuman existence, black people in this country, you know, Africans in particular. They were not treated as equal as other races, you know. So these guys, they introduced apartheid, which means to set people apart. People were segregated along racial lines. The blacks were at the bottom and then Europeans on top, you know. They controlled the means of production. They controlled people, you know. So blacks were particularly not allowed to vote. You know, I just want to summarize. This is a long history, guys. Some of you know it. I just want to summarize for those that don't know it, because I'm watched by people, not just South Africans, even people from outside, and those that are young, who are still learning this history, you know. So this is just a brief summary of where this country comes from. This thing of dispossession, where it comes from, guys. The reason I'm giving you this brief history, you know, because I want to share my opinion about this thing of Igbo king who went to coronate himself in East London, Eastern Cape in South Africa, you know. So I just want to remind you that this thing of invasion is long. It dates back pre-colonial and pre-apartheid time, you know, guys. So I was saying blacks were dispossessed of their land, you know. So they tried to fight. Organizations like ANC was formed, you know, in 1912, you know, in attempt to fight these dispossessions of black people of their land, you know, and the exclusion of black people from economic and political participation, you know. So many people lost their lives, especially blacks, the Africans. They lost their lives, you know. But they were conquered, guys. You know, fast forward, just to cut it short, guys, up until 1994, you know, and it's good to mention that before 1994 arrived, guys, it was other countries, mostly African countries, that helped the comrades of this country, the activists that helped the people of this country to be liberated, you know, to be free from the chains of apartheid. I remember it was mentioned by, may his soul rest in peace, Nelson Mandela, President Nelson Mandela, that Nigeria is one of the countries that sacrificed. They put funds together to support South Africa, you know, to support those comrades who were arrested and tortured and sentenced by apartheid government, you know. So they organized funds, you know. So some countries also helped us. Some of our comrades went there to seek refuge, you know. So this is not to say in return the people of those countries must come to this country and they do illegal things here. They must come undocumented or commit crime in South Africa. This is not what I'm saying, guys. Please, I don't want to be misquoted or misunderstood, you know. So, guys, we then obtained, it was in 1994 when Nelson Mandela was released that we got, the blacks got the political liberation. They were allowed to vote, to go to parliament, form political parties. But economically so, most blacks are still excluded. And the land that was dispossessed has not been returned till today, The land in this country is still owned by the descendants of colonizers and apartheid. So we own nothing. We don't have land. We are landless in our own country, guys. So when I see these guys having energy to go and fight this guy who is alleged to have coronated himself as a king there, firstly, I have high regard for traditional leaders in this country. I don't have a problem with them. However, from time to time, most of these traditional leaders, I don't see their role, their contributive role to society when it comes to uplifting, people and getting rid of poverty, in terms of helping people. I'm talking ordinary people. I don't see them playing any role, guys. For instance, in KZN, there is this fund, the Ngonyama Trust. There is no initiative that is aimed at, helping ordinary people in KZN. Neither in other provinces. There are no initiatives in place that are put in place by these traditional leaders to help ordinary people, to empower them, especially the youth. They are not doing anything with unemployment. They are not creating jobs, So they are not helpful to society, these people. The reason I'm saying this, guys, is because of seeing this energy from these guys all the way from KZN to go to Cape Town, to East London in South Africa, to go to East London in Eastern Cape, to fight someone who is alleged to have coronated himself as a king. So I was wondering, like, what that got to do with us as ordinary people. If, let's say, this guy did that thing, because most of us South Africans, we like to, put much energy, arrange resources, waste our time, put a fight, that to fight for something that even if we were to be given, is not going to change our lives. Because I was just imagining, guys, if indeed this thing was a coronation, maybe someone will say, no, you don't understand, because these people, this is how this thing starts. These people have already invaded, so now they were going to take the land. This is how it starts. This thing was going to spread even to other provinces like in KZN. But I'm saying this, guys, I understand that what they did is wrong. It's invasion. The reason I'm saying this is because this thing could have been amicably resolved by the people of Eastern Cape, mainly by the traditional leaders who are affected there. They should have resolved this thing. So in a nutshell, I'm saying this thing of guys from KZN doing this march, joining hands with, in solidarity and support to people of Eastern Cape. It's just a distraction, guys, from the real issues affecting this country. It was unnecessary, according to me. They shouldn't have gone there. And I think if they didn't go there, people are not going to lose their properties. People are not going to lose their vehicles. People are not going to get hurt. All this mess that happened would have been avoided. The king in charge of that place where that guy is alleged to have coronated himself would have simply sent his delegation to go and speak to that guy. To find out if this thing was indeed a coronation. If that is the case, the king of that place would have just solved that thing. Without any problem. So I understand the frustration of people, man. People, they are attached to these things of kingship, royal. I understand. Some people have sentiments to these things of royal, of kingship, But I don't see their role in society, man. In changing the lives of people, I don't see their role. I don't see a need for people to have, to go there, fight that king. If not the traditional leaders, government would have solved that thing. By simply send the police, go there, find out what these guys were doing, and then just deal with them according to the law. Guys, I'm saying this because now imagine when people got there, most people were hurt. This thing turned into a mess. It was turned into violence. People, these marchers, they went there to launch. They launched an arson attack. Buildings were burned. I heard that this thing was triggered by some Nigerian guy who stabbed one of the marchers, and also the other one who hit one of the marchers with a car. But also, all of that would have been avoided, guys. I also want to blame the organizers of these marches. You guys, next time when you arrange marches, please make sure that you put measures in place to avoid and prevent things like this from happening in future. Make sure that just you put measures in place. This is not to guarantee that nothing is going to happen, but at least put measures in place, preventative measures, to make sure that such things like this don't happen in future. One will ask, how do you put those measures? What actions were these organizers of a march supposed to take? Simple things, guys. If you arrange a march, you deploy, the queue marshals. You must have queue marshals who will go side by side and put the marshals in between. The marshals will be wearing the reflectors, will be monitoring the situation. I think this thing of stepping off this guy, one of the marshals, by this alleged Nigerian, I think it wouldn't have happened. Even if after it happened, it would have been dealt with amicably. So the marshals, would have just caught that guy, bring the police, and get the police, deport that guy, arrest that guy, get that guy arrested and deported, and declared non-crusher, persona non-crusher. That's what they call it. To declare that he's no longer allowed in South Africa. For that violence. So there were no marshals. There were no people who were monitoring the situation there. You guys just went there carrying all traditional, weapons. When you got there, violence sparked. People got triggered. At the end of the day, they launched a arson attack. Innocent people, innocent documented foreigners lost their properties, lost their business, lost their assets. Even some South Africans lost their items there. I saw in a video, guys, one of South African men who lost his car, saying he doesn't even have insurance. That guy said he doesn't have full-time employment. He's a hustler. He has lost his car now. Imagine the trauma of that guy. What that guy is going through today. How is he going to recover? Since he doesn't have employment. All that would have been avoided, man. Also, I blame the police. Where's crime intelligence in this country? If we had crime intelligence that was effective, guys, all these things would have been avoided. But it seems like we don't have crime intelligence. Also the cops, ordinary cops, where are they? Because I also blame them. Because it is their job to monitor the people when they are marching on the streets. But from time to time, these people are overwhelmed by the crowd. It's failure on the part of government. This thing would have been avoided, man. It was unnecessary. And it is an embarrassment to the world. This thing is watched worldwide. Imagine, we don't have employment. Cost of living is too high now. By doing this thing, foreign investors, how are they going to come to invest in this country? Where people do as they please. Whenever people are triggered by something, they go to the streets and then they loot people's businesses. How are we going to get foreign direct investors? Especially the blacks, because they are rich African people who would like to come and invest in South Africa. So tell me, how are they going to come and invest in a country where there's lawlessness? Residents, when they are triggered by something, they just launch an arson attack, demolish people's vehicles, effectively causing a loss to people, even ordinary people who have nothing to do with what was happening there. We are marching against coronation of Nigerian, but now some South Africans and some documented and good foreigners lose their assets. Both police and organizers of this march, I blame them. I blame the police because in most cases they are reactive. They are not proactive, these guys. It's a mess. Imagine this disgrace in the world. Other race is watching, man. This black on black violence is unnecessary. This thing could have been avoided amicably so, by just bringing all the interested parties together. But I know, guys, some people will say, no, it was necessary. These people was Gabi. They must stop doing this thing. We had to do it, But guys, man, no. It is wrong, man. Next time, if this thing continues like this, people are going to lose their lives, man. Because we all know, most of the time when people fight things like this, most of these people are Afrophobic, man. It's not even to say they are xenophobic, because the target is just fellow Africans who are coming from outside. So the use of a word xenophobia is a misnomer. This is just an Afrophobia. Most of us, we are Afrophobic. And I agree with you, most of these people on social media who say it is the Zulus. But guys, it's not all of us, man. When you blame the Zulus for all these things, for inciting violence, for being xenophobic, for being tribalist, it's not all of us. Exclude us, please. Some of us are not part of this mess, man. Some of us were also ashamed to call ourselves the Zulus for what some of our fellow brothers and sisters are doing, man. This hatred towards fellow Africans. Hello? Yabo. It is wrong, man. It is wrong. This thing must stop. You know, it's just a distraction. There are a lot of, issues that are affecting this country. This energy that these people have is just a misdirection, man. They must stop misdirecting it to small things. Because even if that king, this decision, if indeed he was coronated, if a decision was to be made tomorrow that this was not a coronation, or that decision is reversed, the masses, what are they going to achieve? Will the masses get their land? Will the masses get employment? Will these things stop poverty? Will it fix all these social ills that we are facing, guys? No. So I think, man, it's time for us to stop doing these things, guys. And I see most people are uploading these people for what they were doing. It is wrong. It shouldn't have happened. I blame it. This is just part 1. I'm coming with part 2, guys. I want to end this video here. Don't wanna prolix. Till the next one. Sharp.